And we start with the latest missile and drone barrage across Ukraine overnight, targeting the country's energy facilities just in time for the winter deep freeze. Air raid sirens sounded across the country, pushing people to take shelter inside Kyiv's subway system. This is also Russian President Vladimir Putin's form of politics. He says the attack was in response to strikes inside Russia with U.S. weapons.
Last night, we carried out a comprehensive strike using 90 missiles of similar classes and 100 drones. 17 targets were hit. These were military facilities, defense industry facilities, and their support systems. I repeat once again, on our part, these strikes took place in response to the continuous strikes on Russian territory by American ATACMS missiles. As I have said many times, there will always be a response from our side.
President Zelensky says this all just highlights his country's need for more air defenses. CNN's Nick Paton-Walsh is in central Ukraine following these latest developments. Nick, thank you very much for being there on this very cold and late night in Ukraine. You've come from the front lines, and what have you seen there in terms of the ability to match Russia's troops and its firepower?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very stark picture, Christian, on the front lines at this stage. Probably the worst I've seen in nearly 3 years of coming here. Certainly near Pokrovsk, where we were, which is a vital Ukrainian military hub against which there is a lot of Russian pressure from multiple different directions. The soldiers we spoke to were clear. For the first time, frankly, I've heard soldiers saying they simply had run out of men. One of them said he felt alone and essentially the conversation was about how the next couple of months might indeed see a severe worsening of their situation on that front line there. We saw on videos from drone feeds ourselves how the Russian assault is just relentless, tank after tank at some points in the day, dropping off infantry that stay in tree lines. They get hit by the drones that Ukraine really have to rely on now to try and slow down these Russian infantry advances, because Ukraine is so short of infantry themselves. But it isn't simply enough at all. And one soldier said to me, look, they dropped 2 off. 2 might survive the first assault. Russia has a huge tolerance of casualties for these, what they call storm waves. But then another 10 arrived to reinforce them. Maps we were shown were out of date by the time they went up on the screen, frankly, because Russia had been pushing too far forwards. And that's just around Pokrovsk. To its south, there's another Russian progress movement as well. To the north, east of there, another push too. So consistent concerns that we are seeing a very relentless Russian move. They are outnumbering the Ukrainian troops on the front line, certainly. And above all of this, in the background, is these assaults we've been seeing against energy infrastructure. Today's was the 11th that's happened so far this year. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said 90 missiles and 100 drones. On Tuesday, they had a record number of drones fired at Ukraine of 188. These waves of air assaults keep people up all night. They are staggering. They're going to do damage to Ukraine's ability to keep itself warm and the lights on during this particular winter. And it's the election of President-elect Donald Trump that has many concern too. He's just appointed Ukrainian Special Envoy, General Keith Kellogg, to potentially negotiate a solution here. In fact, Putin, in his comments, suggested that Trump was both experienced and capable and might be able to find a solution. Kellogg's solution essentially freezes the front line, according to a plan he wrote back in April, and would ask Ukraine to accept security guarantees, but also pursue the return of all of its lands only through diplomacy. It's a complex plan, certainly. It seems simple on the surface, and it relies on a lot of, I think, malleability and agreement from Vladimir Putin, who right now appears to see his chance. Christian?
Indeed, indeed, as everybody waits for what Trump will do. Nick Paton-Walsh, thank you. And of course, security guarantees is what Ukraine wants, for sure. Now, a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah is largely holding. Yet the Lebanese army says Israel has breached the agreement, quote, several times since taking effect on Wednesday. Israel says it carried out a strike on, quote, terrorist activity in southern Lebanon. Still, the deal has brought a respite after more than a year of cross-border attacks and 2 months of intense Israeli strikes inside Lebanon, they say against Hezbollah, but more than 3,000 people have been killed, including civilians, according to the Lebanese government. And 1 million people at least were evacuated. But now, thousands of those displaced residents are returning. The U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told CNN that the U.S. brokered truce, along with France, presents an opportunity to, quote, drive forward a ceasefire and hostage deal in Gaza. Sanam Vakil is head of the Middle East program at Chatham House, and she's joining me here in London. Sanam, can I just first start by asking you whether you see, with the arrival of Trump in about a month or so, do you see any crossover between what's happening and what might happen under Trump in Ukraine, and similarly, what a Trump might bring to the Middle East?
Good to be with you, and certainly there is connectivity. I think President Biden, in advance of January 20th inauguration of incoming President Trump, is trying to shore up its allies, Ukraine and, of course, Israel, and protect his legacy, which has been badly tarnished by two ongoing, devastating wars. And we know that President Trump has made clear that he seeks to end these wars quite quickly. And so there is a lot of positioning across the region in the Middle East, but also, obviously, between Ukraine and Russia, to be in the right place for Trump's supposed deals.
There's a bit of a crossover when it comes to Iran. Ukraine has complained, and so has the United States, for years now about the Iranian, as we've just heard, the impact of the latest barrage of Shahid drones, other missiles and other, hardware that Iran has been providing Russia with. Also, Iran seems to be, or you tell me how you're reading it, seems to be realizing that it and its partners in the Middle East have been weakened. What do you think, since you study the Iran part of this, and it's going to be massively important under Trump, as it always is, what do you think that piece of it will look like in the next, I don't know, several months and years?
Here again, there is connectivity, as you pointed out, with Iran providing drones and also missiles to Russia. And President Trump has made it clear, as part of what's coming in the Middle East, to support Israel, he is going to reimpose maximum pressure, sanctions, and oversight on the Islamic Republic. He claims, and so do part of the incoming administration, that the goal is a new, better, stronger, more robust deal with Iran that would constrain Iran's nuclear program. But this time, there would have to be a regional element to it. And I think this is where the past 14 months of Israel's effort against Hamas and Hezbollah and Iran also very much matters. The groups have been degraded. Iran certainly looks back-footed and weakened. And the Islamic Republic has, over the past few weeks, been messaging unity, but perhaps also an intention to come to the negotiating table.
And indeed, they seem to be sending signals even to the incoming Trump administration with, various different meetings reported and then denied, but you know how it all plays out in public. Now, as to the Lebanon ceasefire, so it's mostly holding, but you heard what Lebanon said. The army, the people who are actually meant to go in there and replace Hezbollah's authority, are saying that Israel has breached it. And this is what Prime Minister Netanyahu said, because I believe he said this a while ago when he announced the ceasefire. This is what he said about what Israel will continue to do.
The duration of it will depend on what happens in Lebanon. We keep a whole freedom for military freedom, and if Hezbollah will rearm itself, we will attack.
Well, apparently they did attack today on what they call a terrorist emplacement. How should we be looking at this? Is this the inevitable sort of leftovers of a major, confrontation? Or do you think this ceasefire is not worth the paper it's been written on?
Too early to say, really. It's a very important ceasefire. We should celebrate it above all for the people in Lebanon and also in Israel. Their security has been damaged on both sides, so much displacement and lives lost. But this is going to be a very fragile deal, one that will ultimately see the imposition of UN Security Council Resolution 1701 hopefully be implemented. Hezbollah has to move back beyond the Litani River. The UN and Lebanese armed forces are going to have to patrol this border area. And so it's a lot to put on this Lebanese institution that is underfunded and has been under pressure. The UN also needs to have a more robust role, and a lot can go wrong, as we have just seen.